Hi, my name is Karima and welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be talking about how to maintain a GRC register. So today's video is going to be for any GRC manager or an enterprise risk professional, anyone that has any management of a cyber risk register or any sort of risk register. And the purpose of today's video is to give you some guidelines around how you should maintain the register to make sure it doesn't get out of control or become outdated or just become really stressful to manage. So the first thing I'm going to start with is understanding what you have. That's always the first step. So when you understand what specifically you have in terms of a risk register, so how many risk registers you have throughout the organization, find out the ones that you're responsible for, find out where there might be some overlap. So for example, if you have some legislation within your risk register and the enterprise risk management team also have that, identify where there might be some duplication of efforts and decide on clear scope. So you want to be sure of what you're responsible for and what you're not responsible for. Risk registers can often be a dumping ground for, let's say, project teams or areas of the business that they're not too sure what to do with something, so they just throw it in the risk register. But it's your responsibility to make sure that you provide education around that so that that does not become the case. So first step, scope. What should belong in there, what shouldn't belong in there? That should be your first step. After that, you need to go about an education piece. So some organizations use spreadsheets, some use GRC tools, and others use things like databases that they've custom made. Whatever the format of your risk register, you need to make sure that people are using it in the way you intended. So for example, headings, descriptions, risk matrices, you need to make sure that you've provided guidance for every single step of the process, because where there's no established process, people will do what they think is best, whether rightly or wrongly. So for example, if you've got an organization of, let's say, 30 risk register users and they all come from different backgrounds, environments, varying levels of risk understanding, when it comes to describing risk, describing the cause, the consequence, risk scoring, you're going to have varied approaches. And what you want to do as a risk manager is unify the approaches. So make it as difficult as possible for there to be 1,000 ways to do the same thing. So for example, titles. This is always a simple one. Description of a risk. Sounds straightforward. What would you call it? If you ask 10 different people, they'll give you 10 different answers. But broadly, you want to make sure that you guide them towards the way that is most useful. So for me, I always say that within a title, I should be able to see what the risk is about broadly, the domain it relates to, and then if it's a tool related thing, we should also be able to see that. In that, providing guidance within that training to let people know exactly what you're looking for, so that the variation in what you receive in terms of information is very small. After that, I would recommend looking at documenting everything. So once you've trained and spoken with people and given them the education piece, you want to be able to document and store this information somewhere central that everyone can see it. So for example, creating a standard operating procedure or SOP document describing, in the title field, this is what we want to see. In description, this is what we want to see. The controls that need to be attached, description of the control library, any standards that need to be adhered to, documenting all of that and putting it somewhere central so that when new people join the organization, they have somewhere easy and clear to go and get information that they need. I find that goes a long way in almost having accountability when it comes to risk registers. And then lastly, you need to make sure that you have it in place, like a plan in place, whether it's automation or by calendar invite, a plan for regularly reviewing what's in the risk register. Because I find that people sometimes treat risk registers as that cupboard that just has miscellaneous items. You just throw it in there, you don't think about it anymore. You need to go in there regularly, depending on the risk. If it's higher risk, you need to review it more frequently. If it's slightly lower risk, you can maybe go in quarterly, but it must be reviewed in a 12-month period. A risk item has to have been reviewed at least once, again depending on criticality. That's everything I have by way of quick tips for maintaining a risk register. The call to action I'll give is evaluate your current risk register, evaluate it, have a look, see what's in there, see if you're happy with the quality of information, look at the last review dates, and based on what you have, list 10 improvements that you would like to make over the next 6 months. So the idea here is to make sure that you're incrementally improving. You don't need to, make rapid change in a week or in a month, but gradually, slowly have a plan for what you want to improve in the next 6 months. And 6 months from now, you'll look at your risk register and it will be in a better state than 6 months ago. So yeah, thanks for listening. Don't forget to like, comment and subscribe, and feel free to email me if you have any questions.